Hi, my name is Jeremy Delemarter. I am an associate professor in the College of Education here at Northwest University, and you are listening to the 10-Minute Tips podcast. Today we're talking about classroom skills. What are the habits and practices that will enable you to be the very best student you can be in the classroom? So first and foremost on this list is that you should go to class. There is, of course, the trope of the college students that never attend class, and you will meet a few of those, but by and large, students attend class. It is what they are paying for after all. But it's not enough to simply be there. Your physical presence, although necessary, is not sufficient. So I ask you to think about a few things. What does present mean? Because it's more than just your body being in class. For example, if you were up until 5 a.m. playing video games with your roommate, and then you go to your 8 o'clock class on 2.5 hours of sleep, are you really present? Have you set yourself up to learn in that environment? Can you honestly say, yeah, I'm here, I gave it my best shot, I'm here in body and spirit, in all my full cognitive prowess? No, you probably can't. What does present mean? Because it's more than just your physical body. You have to be there in your fullness. You can't do that if you got 2 hours of sleep. And you can't do that if you are distracted by, well, I'm present, but yeah, I've got my, earbuds in and I'm listening to, music. Or I'm on my computer and I'm scrolling through websites while I'm in class. I may be physically present, but I am not present. Ask yourself this: where do you sit? Just as it was when you were in high school, there are students who want to sit up near the teacher and students who want to sit near the back. Now, where you sit, front or back, in and of itself is not an indicator of your interest or your focus or your engagement. However, it could be. So, for example, if for you sitting in the back is a way of disengaging and a way of remaining separate from the teacher, don't sit in the back. Likewise, if sitting in front is a way that you try to overcompensate or control for something, maybe choose something else. But I ask you to think strategically and intentionally about where do you sit and challenge yourself. If I am tending to use my, where I sit in class as a way of disengaging or not being noticed or let off the hook, maybe sit somewhere else. Because here's the final question I want to ask you about this. What attitude do you want to convey? And what attitude do you want to foster in yourself? If you sit in the back and you disengage and kind of physically distance yourself from the rest of the class, you will foster that attitude in yourself, or you're very likely to foster that attitude in yourself. Conversely, if you sit towards the front where you are in the thick of things and you're near the professor and it's more difficult for you to zone out simply because of proximity, you are going to foster an attitude of engagement in yourself, or you're more likely to foster an attitude of engagement in yourself. You can create your own habits, and you can create sort of the reality that you inhabit in class by your physical presence. Do you show up 1 minute before it starts in your sweats? Do you take a little time to prepare yourself and get dressed? Did you have a good meal before you came to class? Did you have breakfast? Those things matter. They matter because they affect how present you are in class. Now, can you skip breakfast and show up in your sweats or pajamas and still be present and engaged? Yes, of course. But if the things that help you be present are those things, what you do before class and preparing yourself to be fully there is as important as what you do in class. Speaking of that, it leads to my next topic, which is to do the reading ahead of time. If you want to be productive in class and maximize your face-to-face time with the professor, you have to come prepared. One of the very best things I did in my freshman year of college was to do all the reading before the assigned class sessions. And that way I picked up on more of what the professor was saying. Instead of doing the reading afterwards, I came prepared. It may not be reading. It may be something else that you need to do to get yourself in the right frame of mind with the right knowledge base to bring in to enter into the discussion. But this, if you want to be productive in class, I urge you to prepare yourself with the material. Keeping in mind that homework or assignments, these are not punishments and these are not chores. It is popular in some educational settings for students to conceive of teacher versus professor. And it's quite honestly occasionally popular for professors to think of it that way too. Not at Northwest, I've not experienced that. But I've heard of it. Don't give in to that. Don't think that way. Your professors want the same thing you want, which is for you to learn. It's why you're here. We are on your side. And so if you enter into the classroom with the attitude of, I am engaged, I am prepared because I am collaborating with this professor on my learning. We are working together for my cognitive and intellectual and emotional and spiritual growth. We are a team. If you have that attitude, it will affect the way that you have entered the classroom, where you've sat, how you've prepared yourself, etc., etc. While you're in class, one of the best things you can do is to take notes strategically. Now notice that I'm not just saying take notes. You could write things down and have it be remarkably ineffective. So I want you to be strategic. Think about this. Are you going to use a computer or a pen and a paper? Now, there are some studies that suggest that pen and paper is more effective because you can't write as fast as you can type. When you type, you can capture more words that the professor says, possibly, but you cannot. It doesn't make you necessarily think and have to choose. And when you have to think and choose, you have to synthesize and you have to analyze as you're note-taking. You can't write everything down, so you write down what's important. And so you're already making those evaluative decisions as you write. For me, as a student, I learned that if I have my computer open in class, I will get off task. And I will start looking at social media and whatever. And I learned in grad school, I can't do that. I have to go pen and paper if I'm going to do this. So I take notes pen and paper, and that's a strategic decision on my part to kind of keep myself focused. Generally speaking, writing down every word isn't helpful because one of the most effective note-taking techniques is to be summarizing and to be picking and choosing between what's important, what is not, which ideas can be merged together into one unit. And so the most effective thing you can do for note-taking, regardless of whether you do it on a computer or by hand, is at the end of class is to summarize your notes with a big idea. What was the main topic here? What was the main point of, I have all this information written down, but what does it mean? How does it relate to yesterday's class? How does it relate to today's class? Doing that at the end of class, like the teacher says, all right, you're dismissed, and assuming that you don't have to sprint across campus to your next class, take a minute and write it down, summarize it, do that little cognitive bow on the package. It is one of the most important things you can do to cement your learning. Study after study after study has shown the efficacy and the power of simply summarizing your notes into a 1 or 2 sentence takeaway. Big idea. That is the best note-taking tip I can give you, actually, in terms of your classroom presence. And then finally, you should be communicating whatever accommodations you have that relate to class. So for example, if you worked with academic advising and you have a blue sheet that gives you additional time on tests, say, or preferential seating or note-taking support, or whatever the accommodation is that you merit, please communicate that to your professor within the first week of class, if possible, assuming those are in place. And then take advantage of them. There is nothing wrong with using the accommodations that you have been given. Please, I implore you, if they're going to help you learn, use them. So, to summarize all of this, be present in class. Not just physically, be present mentally, be prepared, be well rested, be fueled up. Sit in a place that's going to foster the attitude and engagement that you need to foster. Do your reading ahead of time. Think of your professors as collaborators, as co-workers with you in your own growth. And then take your notes strategically. Summarize your notes at the end of each session. Look for the big ideas, not simply the verbatim copying of facts. If you can do all of this, you are going to have incredibly productive and meaningful class sessions.